I am Guggi, and you are listening to the Ireland Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Ireland Podcast. This is Fender Jackson. The time is 11:26 a.m. on Tuesday the 4th of August 2026. I am in this person's home in Dublin. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Gavin Friday. This is my little house in Rathmines, Dublin. I am a musician, a performer, a singer-songwriter, amongst a few other things.
It's the few other things that I'm really interested in because you're an enigma in many people's minds, including my own. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested in the few other things. What are they?
Well, it depends what I don't know. I mean, let's say I tend to do everything instinctively and gut. I trust my gut. Like, an example would be, I brought out an album nearly 2 years ago, October 24, Ecce Homo. But before that, I had an album 11 years previous, or 13 maybe, called Catholic. And before that, I was 15 years or something for Shag Tobacco. Now, I'd done lots of soundtrack in between that, but say like a Catholic, which came out in 2010, I think. And I toured for 2 years. And I had said in all my interviews, I'm really loving touring and playing live, and I'm going back in to make a new album, and I will be back on the road in 1.5 years, 2 years. That's what I said then, but it took 13 years before I had all that. But what happened was when I came back from touring Catholic, I met a musician called Gavin Bryars.
Oh, thinking of Titanic, Jesus God Never Failed Me Yet.
That's the man.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan, still am, a big fan of those works. Yeah. I met him through one of the musicians I work with, Kate Ellis, from from the Crash Ensemble. Oh. I've worked with her for 20 years in my band, and she said, you got to, do something with this man. And I ended up doing a performance in Dublin of the sinking of the Titanic. Which doesn't have a vocal, but we invented this concept that was quite surreal, where he told me these stories, which I found fascinating. He said there was one, he had collected all these stories from the survivors of the Titanic. And one of them was this gentleman that said, okay, we're sinking, we're gone. And he took out 2 bottles of whiskey. And he just said he'd drink them, and he had a wind-up stereo in his room. Obviously quite well-to-do man, or what do you call those, gramophones?
Gramophones, yeah.
And he played classical music and music of the times, and drank and drank and drank. And drank so much that the water didn't kill him, the cold. He survived because he'd so much whiskey in him. So I said, I like that character. And I sort of sat there drinking. We had this visual where we imagined there was the orchestra, but the orchestra was slowly sinking in shadow. And I was sitting there with this top hat or this hat, just silhouette drinking. No, I wasn't drinking whiskey for 2 hours. I was pretending just water. But I was singing, from, songs of the time, like Al Johnson, Mammy, or oh, you great big doll, you great big beautiful doll. Almost like this man just singing to his drink. And then I had this idea that the amount of people that died in that, most of them were in the underneath of the Titanic, the hold, and they were mainly Irish Catholics. So I just said, imagine the sound of people saying their prayers. So I recorded loads of Hail Marys and the Rosary, and had and like coming in, so it was quite eerie.
Yeah.
And like, I got just sort of distracted by that concept, did the gig, and he loved it so much, he said, I'd like to work with you on more things. And he proposed, he was commissioned to do the Shakespeare sonnets, but differently. And he asked me to submit a song to the sonnet, and I did, but I did it quite differently because I have this theory that, like, I didn't like Shakespeare as a kid. I didn't understand it. I thought it was angry and too complex in Old English. And when you get a bit older, you start understanding how great it was, and you hear his phrases everywhere. But the real thing was the sonnets are the great way to start, because there's only 12, 14 lines. And there were love sonnets, and I was reading them and says, which one will I do? I picked sonnet 40, and I went, why does everyone shout them? Like this sort of Laurence Olivier, take this, my love, this theatrical nod. I go, I can get it in Shakespeare's time because
You have to project.
they had to project and they had no microphones, but we have microphones now. So I said, and sonnets, they're also love sonnets. So it's like pillow talk. You don't shout with pillow talk. So I went, take this, my love. And I slowed them all right down. And he loved it so much, and so did the Shakespearean Company. I went on tour with them for a year and a half. So it was like, I came around the corner and this interesting idea challenged me or interests me. And I love learning and experiencing. And I remember talking to a good friend of mine, Jim Sheridan, and I said, yeah, well, you know, they want me to work with them for a year and a half or 2 years, and I have to go to fucking Leeds because it was with the Leeds Orchestra.
Right.
And he says, but Gavin, it's the Shakespearean Company, and what you learn from it in phrasing and discipline. And he says, like, they only pay you 250 quid a week. That's it. Like, if Al Pacino was doing a play, he'd be getting 250 quid a week. It's, you have it on your CV.
Right.
And I did it. And I really enjoyed it, and I learned so much. I learned about sight reading, because I could never really...
Music sight reading?
Yeah, I could never really read it. Now, I can't still, but I have my way of reading it. My own
So this is for melody, for melodic?
No, it was more for where you come in, because there's a lot of instrumental passages.
Okay.
So it's where you come in and out.
What beat, etc.
Yeah.
And how long to recite for?
Well, you would always have the sonnet would end up being about 7-8 minutes, and then there'd be 7-8 minutes of music with a choral. They had a tenor and a soprano, just singing notes. It's very beautiful.
So there's a bit of give and take. They'd compensated for you finishing at a different time.
They did, but they quite liked it too. Well, not the fucking classical people, but Gavin Bryars did.
Yes.
Because he said it added passion and spontaneity. And I was even making it more tangible, because one of the big things in my life generally is art being not as on a pedestal and fearful for sort of, say, working class people, where they feel I don't understand that, like abstract painting or anything. And I go, well, it's not that hard to understand. You just find something you like in it, and that's enough. You know, it's not about this intellectual bullshit. Does it relate to you? Does it say anything to you? And that's why I think the arts, like, should be more public. Like, I love when you see in Dublin, you know, all those graffiti and those paintings, and even when the marriage equality and the rights for abortion were coming up, they had these murals, and they said so much. People going by on the bus and they go, oh, yeah, maybe I will vote against that. I will repeal that. So there's ways around, but I'm meandering. By the way, when I talk, I weave and meander.
I'm going to pull you back to, so you make this gut decision to go with Gavin Bryars.
Yeah.
There must be some point where you're looking at, even if it's as simple as the finances, and say, I'm committing myself to this for 1.5 years, and it's going to be 250 quid a week. Is this the right decision for me, or is there other things coming into play there where you're making a decision that's not on your gut?
Yes, well, I mean, number one, I'm privileged enough, even though I've worked really hard, I never had a penny till I was about 40. But I do work with U2, and it's very much, it's not like, best mates work. I work independently with them as a consultant and a creative. More to do with their live shows.
You design their sets, is that correct?
I'm part of that.
Okay.
I mean, they're pretty hands-on. There's a creative team. There's the 4-band, Bono and Edge being the most prominent, visual opinions. But it's still a diplomacy, believe it or not. And then there's myself, a woman called Ez Devlin, who's the greatest stage designer in the world. She's really interesting. Yeah. Rick Lipson and Willie Williams, who's sort of the show director. So, yeah.
They all chip in.
Yeah.
And then I assume it's Bono and the Edge who gives, it's probably Larry actually gives the final rubber stamp, but it comes up to them and they make the decision.
Yeah, they make the decisions. I mean, like, they're all, it's so encouraging that they care. Where I know Anton Corbijn quite well, and he does all Depeche Mode's tours. Okay. And Depeche Mode hand him the album, tell him what it's about, explain the lyrics, and you do what you want. And then they just trust him.
Wow.
And they just go, okay, this is it, it's great. And that.
He is fantastic. As a photographer, he's got a good eye on him. And what do you bring to the table then?
With who?
With U2 set designs? Or, I don't know if set designs is the right term.
No, it's concepts as well.
Stage concepts?
Yeah, and ideas. But, there's a certain thing that I gravitate to sort of against, is that in today's society, especially with social media and TikTok and Instagram, everybody wants to see, let's say, the knickers before the dress is even off. It's voyeurism, and they want to see how something is made. I like mystery. I like why. I don't particularly like live video of shows, because I don't think anything captures, no matter how sophisticated the director is, the feeling of a live gig and that sweat and feeling between audience and performer. It never feels the same. But like people go, I'm going to see this gig next week, but I'm going to look at it on YouTube. Why? There's some
magic
person that's a bit drunk holding a camera on an iPhone up, and it looks and sounds like shit. So no, everybody wants to open their Christmas presents at Easter. and so I tend to sort of go, it's a relationship, it's a crafting thing. And I also work within the content of when we're setting it up, making sure that, because I'm a musician and the others are more creatives in the design, does it relate and is it feeling right with the music and the performance? So I work on the sound, I work in all the territories.
What I love about live performance, and I know this from I told you I studied theatre design technology. That was actually in the University of Leeds. And what I took from that was that with theatre, as opposed to film, it's created and destroyed at the same time. The moment is created and destroyed at the same time.
You mean, what do you mean destroyed? Because it's done?
Because it's done, because you're seeing it live.
Yeah.
And you're never going to see that moment again. Whereas once you capture it, it's then film.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing in the world now, in anything. It's called spontaneity. We're just becoming so afraid of letting the mask slip or whatever. And I find that the most interesting.
You said at the start that you're a musician. Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I've forgotten the list. But
A musician, a singer, songwriter, and a performer.
yeah, so you put yourself a musician first.
Not first. It's just
Okay, so it's in the top
It
three.
was sort of my introduction. Well, a lot of people said the Virgin Prunes weren't musicians, but if you actually listen back to the albums 40 years later, from the archaic, abstract albums like Heresy and New Form and Beauty, it was another avant-garde world. But if you listen to If I Die or Die or The Moon Looked Down, there is a musicality there, and it was quite advanced.
What put the fire in you whenever you're a young guy living in Cedarwood Road?
I think you're born with fire, and I think I would really believe in the philosophies of those, Jung and all of that, and Freud, that the person is really discovered. The real spirit of the person is when they're small. Whatever happens when they're small, like when they're a little boy or girl, and that can go up, I'd say, from the age of 2 till you're probably 14. I don't know. So that ended up. I was quite sort of, believe it or not, a shy young man in Cedarwood Road, and I was bullied a lot. And I was being called a queer before I even had pubic hair.
Before you knew you were gay?
Before I knew it was anything.
Yeah.
I was going, what is this? I had an Oscailge name, Fionnán, Fiona for the N. And I remember my first case of real bullying was at school, because I had like long curly hair. Not long, but it was blonde curly hair. My mother liked it long. And it was a mixed baby infants, first day at school, and the roll book comes out. And it goes, and it was Oscailge, Fionnán O'Hanava. No, it went Fiona O'Hanava. Oh. And I went, I'm not a girl. And she said, well, your name is spelt like a girl's. I says, no, there's an N and a father. And she says, well, then why have you got a girl's hair? And she came down and put a clip in my hair. Wow. And then it was all hell in the yard when you go out for lunchtime. Like the kids were slagging me. So it's like, and this was a nun called Sister Bernard. Like, I mean, like, come on. Like the madness of that sort of old school Catholic thing. And unfortunately, my father, when I was 12, I wanted to go to the comprehensive. Mount Temple, most of my friends went to Mount Temple, or Ballymun Comprehensive. And comprehensives were new things. They were mixed schools. They weren't primarily Catholic or Protestant. It was mixed. And it was the way forward. I think Mount Temple was the first one in the country. And my dad says, no, your brothers are going, but you're not going. You need to learn. You're a wild card. You need to actually get some discipline. And strangely, Guggi's dad wouldn't let Guggi go to the comprehensive. He went to another harsh school. I forget, it's somewhere in Whitehall. It wasn't Christian Brothers. But all Guggi's brothers were allowed. So we went to these non-liberal schools, which resulted in the Virgin Prunes, which was, if we had gone to the other ones, God knows, I could be a banker. I doubt it, but so there was an element of, I also came from a dysfunctional, well, who doesn't come from a dysfunctional family in that era of Ireland? The 60s being a small kid, the 70s being a teenager, and a dysfunctional dad, a bad relationship with the dad, and that era of men, they just didn't know how to show affection or understanding of anything. And the curse of, drink with Ireland in the days of massive unemployment and massive sexism, and the church had everything in a stranglehold, and men were men and women should do what they're told.
When did your life then start to plateau out in terms of, you talk about lack of function or dysfunctionality. When did you have some form of normality in your life? Or are you still waiting?
Oh, no, I have loads of normality in my life, or surreal normality, my normality. I actually would be honest to say at the age of 12, when I went into secondary school, which was Christian Brothers, Cloisteau Keeveen in Ballygall, I discovered I did have music. Like I loved Top of the Pops and Mark Bolan. I was very much a 70s kid because my dad was very strict. There was no record player, music. He thought music was bad. And I remember when he was at one stage saying to him, "Dad, even plants like fucking music. What's wrong with you?" But I was told, if you want a record player, you go out and buy one. So I got a job at 12 and bought like a small Dance-It portable thing, and I'd go out and buy, early glam rock singles like T-Rex mainly, and The Sweet and Slade, and they were just 7 inches. And then it was April '72, which is a renowned date for anyone that knows Bowie, and his first performance on Top of the Pops. And whatever way he spoke or performed, that otherworldliness, I said, I want to go there. And I bought the album Ziggy Stardust, and sort of everything changed. But it was also weirdly, because somebody was doing a big thesis on Oscar Wilde contacted me. And at the same time, I never was a reader as a young kid. Like you'd get the Beano and the Sparky annuals for Christmas. But like 5 Go Down to the Sea and all these Enid Blyton shit, I was not interested in. But the importance of being earnest was on the curriculum for the intercert. And my granddad was a librarian, and basically he robbed the full works of Oscar Wilde, where I was fascinated by the picture of Dorian Gray, and then the similarities with Ziggy and Dorian and this selling one's soul to the devil, Faustian thing, just clicked. And then for some reason, one of my aunts brought me to see Cabaret, even though I was only 12. And it just fucked my head up. So all of these things became like allies. And Bowie being beyond a diviner, as in he very generously in his interviews and in his references would talk about William Burroughs and Jean Genet. Like I thought that Jean Genie was Jean Genet. And I bought Jean Genet at 13. I had no clue what it meant, but I was reading it. And it was like years later I'd understand it. So I was delving into all these worlds of art and music, all touchstoned by Bowie and Oscar Wilde and the likes. And I quite like the fact that Oscar Wilde was an outsider and a rebel. And then I met Guggi and Bono just before punk, '74. And they were more interested in me than I was them. By coincidence, there was a phone booth outside Rowan's, Guggi's house. You'd no one had phones or colour TV or even fridges, I think. used to have to put the 2 milk bottles in the sink with cold water.
Wow.
Do you remember those days?
No.
No? We had that. Oh, it's the summer, put the milk in, before you go to bed, put the milk in the sink with the cold water to keep it fresh. But I'd go down to, I'd be going to see another friend, Francis Mangan or whatever, but I'd be ringing him up because he had a phone to see would he be there. And they'd be sitting on the wall and they'd be looking, and I'd long curly hair, and my mother was a seamstress, so I'd Oxford bags, I'd clothes. Clothes were a big identity to me. And I always, it's sort of a rite of passage for young people, where even in school, they'd bring an album to school. Now, there's no record players at school, but you'd bring your album to show off.
Like a pin, like a badge.
Yeah, and it wasn't Status Quo or Slade. I had Bowie or Eno or Roxy Music. And they approached me saying, give us a lend of your records. And I was like, no. Now, my dad told me, never trust a prod. But eventually I was charmed into them. And strangely, it was, you know, from the world. I remember talking about Protestants, being in fear as a young boy of, on the radio and the TV, of Ian Paisley in the early 70s. Says, what is he so angry at? Who is he? It was like this Frankenstein monster, that voice on the radio and the TV. And I go, Dad, why is he so angry? He's a f***ing prod. And so you had this sort of, there was a real divide.
So that was building up this barrier between you and them.
Yeah, and then, Ulster says no. And when I started hanging out with Protestants and people from Mount Temple and Bono and Edge and Dick, and it was actually the opposite. They said Ulster, Ireland says yes. The Catholic Church says no. No to Bowie, no to eyeliner, no to earrings, no to long hair. The Christian Brothers. And I went, wow, this is more liberal than what it is in the Catholic. So I just felt an element of freedom, that I wasn't being beaten up at school because of how I looked. These didn't give a shit.
What's your earliest fond memory of Bono and Guggi?
It's a hard one. I have so many fond memories. I remember I used to have, because I had more records than anybody, because I had this part-time job and I had everything. So it always, my mother was quite a lenient and beautiful mother, like almost like those cliched Irish mothers of the times. I mean, God help her, Brenda Fricker passed recently, but she was that type of mammy, as was Guggi's mammy and Bono's mammy in another way. It was just a man's world back then. But my mum, I mean, Ma, I should say, as I'm really from the north side, not the south side, my Ma used to say, your dad's never in on a Monday. He's always out in the pub. Why don't you bring your friends down and play your records in the front room? And I have a memory of like suddenly in a house that I hated because of the wrath of me dad, I had friends in and I was playing them this. And it went on, especially in the later teens, where I'd literally get a boat over. I had a friend, Tommy McCann, I had a friend whose dad was in the BNI, so we'd go over on a boat to Liverpool, buy records and come back. So I remember saying, I've got Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures. Come on up, let's play it. And we're all like around the record player and looking. So I've really, the innocence and the beauty and the drive then to make bands. I mean, I think what punk did in '76, I'm backtracking all the time.
That's okay, yeah.
I said earlier in conversation, I first saw, the first gig I ever saw, I didn't go to the Bag It Inn, was David Bowie. Like a guy from Dublin who bought the NME every day, every fucking week of the year from 72, saw that there was tickets for sale for his show in 1976 in Earl's Court, and I bought a ticket. And I told my mum I was going to stay over in Tommy's for the weekend, and I got a boat and train, and I slept rough in Victoria Station, and went to see Bowie in Earl's Court doing the station tour, which was just phenomenal, opening with the sound of Kraftwerk, the first time I heard electronic music, with Salvador Dali and Louis Buñuel's film of the eye being slit. And then he comes on as the thin white Duke with all the white lights. It was like, but I remember being in the queue to that, and I had long curly hair and earrings all in black with Oxford bags. And I felt like a fucking Aegis when I saw the style of all the other British kids.
It had taken that next step forward.
They were like, wow. They were all looking like the thin like Duke, and I was looking like a Mark Bolan fan. But I also had this memory of like looking across the road and seeing at this pub, I said, what on earth are they? And it was the first time I saw punks.
Wow.
And it must have been like the Bromley contingent.
76, you said?
76.
What month?
It would have been June or something.
Wow.
And punk was happening. And then in the NME, punk rock, new scene, The Clash, Sex Pistols. And I said, that's it. And a week later, the hair was gone.
Yeah.
And none of that.
So I often thought that the Virgin Prunes were inspired by the Velvet Underground, but I'm hearing maybe it's more punk.
It's more punk, but not just punk, in like post-punk being, when everyone thinks of punk, they think of the Sex Pistols, the Clash, Buzzcocks, who are all in their own way individually brilliant, but post-punk delivered bands like Cabaret Voltaire, Pere Ubu, Devo, even Joy Division, The Fall. And they, and Public Image, even where Johnny Lydon went on to be Public Image, early Public Image, that and like Throbbing Gristle and Cabaret Voltaire especially would use backing tapes and stuff. So we were pulling at them as influences. I did know the Velvet Underground because Lou Reed's Transformer I bought when it came out because David Bowie produced it. It was much more post-punk and sort of what was then called krautrock, that electronic thing, more so than the Velvets. But the post-punk thing, well, punk was the instigator in that when you're like 15, 16 in 76, you actually thought in your head that to be Brian Ferry or Roxy Music or David Bowie or Bruce Springsteen or the Beatles, you were some sort of superior god that went to this university in the heavens. But punk debunked that and said anyone can express themselves. DIY, do it yourself, learn 3 chords, scream if you haven't got a lyric. And that was the seed that I grabbed onto, and sort of in a different way, you two. And I then, didn't form a band until 78, and it sort of accidentally turned into the Virgin Prunes, you know.
Whenever you're in your room listening to those records, I just heard When the World Was Young.
Yeah.
And I saw you perform that in Dublin,
Yeah.
in Vicar Street. It seemed like a very emotional performance to me.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was a lot being said in that room that wasn't being said.
Yeah.
I met Guggi afterwards, and he was enthralled by the whole night. What does that song mean to you?
It means an awful lot, but where it came from, like songs, I mean, I don't want to sound fucking pretentious,
But you will.
but they are, sometimes you work really hard on them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like snowflakes and you catch them before they melt.
Yeah.
And when I worked with Dave Bowie, he would send me some riffs and jams. We worked on a lot of this remotely. And then we got together in London. And he sent me this hook. And he said, see what you think of this, and we might make something of it. And I immediately just started singing, and I started writing. So I sort of wrote the lyric really quickly, and then it took fucking ages to get the music right. But I was, at that time, you know, my mother was just about to die of Alzheimer's when I wrote that song. When I went to mix Ecce Homo, COVID happened, so I postponed mixing it for 3 years because I wasn't going to put a cake in the oven and then take it out 3 years later for people to eat. You know, I like things being fresh. And I lost in that period 4 people I knew really well. And so there was this retrospective thing, but also there was a contemporary anger, like Ecce Homo, the title track, is about, you know, the crazy rise of fundamentalism and the far right, and we're going backwards rather than forwards. But I couldn't help, I wanted to write about Hal, my mother, and lament some of it. And then I started going, Jesus, like I'm 60 and I know these 2 men. And I went, rather than just write it about, that's really about the feeling of first meeting, you know, reaching for the sky, jumping, you know, getting lost in your dreams. I wanted it not to be just about the friendship and the bond, but also a touchstone for younger people to go, you can go there if you want.
DIY.
Yeah, DIY, but also, you know, I think the strange unspoken, even though it has been spoken about since, but we didn't know when you're like 14, 15. I think there was a silent bond because we're very different men, but there's similarities. But our 3 fathers, we had very bad relationships with them and dysfunctional relationships with them. And the 3 of them were called Robert. The 3 Roberts. There's Robert Pascal Hanvey, Robert Bob Hewson, and Robert Rowan.
Wow. Did you ever patch it up with your dad?
I did.
What did you come to understand about him that you didn't understand before?
That he didn't understand me.
And who had the blame there? Or was there blame?
There was a bit of both. I was not easy. I was quite an angry young boy as a teenager. Like, you know, I knew how to press his fucking buttons. I'm having some friends over tonight for drinks. Get rid of that queer, get rid of those Bowie albums. Don't have them sitting in the sitting room, because you'd have your albums out on display. Yeah. And I go, oh, are you? And I'd get Never Mind the Bollocks, and I'd put Aladdin Sane, and I'd put Roxy music with the 2 girls with their tits out. And I'd, put them there to Liberty. Oh, I didn't. I knew how to rise them. So much so that when the Virgin Prunes were making a name for themselves in Dublin, mainly for being banned, on covers of papers like Men in Dresses. And he said, I can't even go to the local pub. I can't fucking go anywhere. You're a shame. So it was like I was totally f***ing his head up.
Yeah.
And it was pretty heavy because, you know, I'd ring on Christmas morning to wish happy Christmas. And this is like in my 30s even. And you go, and I'd say, oh, happy Christmas. Ah, f*** off, here's your ma. It was like that heavy.
Yeah, yeah.
But when he had a heart attack, and
What year was that?
he's dead 20 years. So it would have been 2005, 2006. And I just moved to Killiney. And I got a call from a brother that my dad had a heart attack and he's in the Manor. And I just fucking ran. I couldn't describe the emotion, the fear. And he was on a trolley and it was serious. And all my family were there. And he told my brothers, Rabord, Padraig, Cror, and me ma, f*** off. I only want Fanon. F*** off. And I go, okay, I'll stay with him. And they said, we'll come back in 2 hours. And about 4 hours later, they come back. And he's just sitting there and he's mumbling, he's not really talking. And then Rabord says, oh, give Fanon a break. He's been here for, f*** off. So I stayed, and then it's a bit like a fucking Jim Sheridan movie. He says, can you hold my hand? I'm afraid. And I held his hand, and he says, God, your hand's really big. And I says, that's because you haven't held it since I was 4. Yeah. And by the way, he had big hands. Yeah. And then he said, I'm really sorry, son, for not understanding you and not supporting you. And I'm really sorry I never went to any of your gigs. And I'm sorry I never went to see The Name of the Father in the premiere. And I'm sorry. I just didn't understand you. I was afraid. I was afraid for you. And I'm very proud of you. Oh. So it's a bit like a Jim Sheridan story. Yeah. But then to counter it all, he had the surgery. And 2 days later, I go into ICU to see him. And I had this big coat with a fake fur collar. And I walk in and he's in the bed. And he goes, yeah, fucking ages. It's all about fucking you with your fucking Elwyn's coat. What are you fucking trying to prove? You'll give me another heart attack. Get out. He got out. Yeah. He went home a few days later, and then he had another massive heart attack and died at home. But I found the other thing quite funny. Yeah. You know.
Right. So it's more amusing than hurtful.
Well, when he thought he was going to die, and he apologized. Then he thought he was going to live, and he says, that fucking ponce. And then, so, you know, but he did really, you know, he was proud of me, but he couldn't say it. But I think it took him years to understand.
Was he born in the 1930s?
Yeah, 34, I think.
You know, I've had a similar relationship with my father. I don't mind saying it. And I often say that my father is from South Derry, born in the 1930s, and he's a builder. Mm. Any of those three, you know, would make him a hard man. Mm. So I had a very distant relationship with him for a long time, and I had to go meet him more than 90%. You know, I am a straight guy. You know, I don't know what it would have been like if I had been not straight.
He's also a painter and decorator, and all my brothers are tradesmen. Yeah. I don't even know how to put a fucking plug on a kettle, and I was no interest, you know. But it was interesting. Also, his older brother, my uncle Paddy, was quite a sort of sophisticated man. He lived in London for a while, and came back to Dublin. But he was like my godfather. And he sort of introduced me, he'd be playing Caruso and opera. You'd call up like me, Matt, bring your Uncle Paddy a pound of sausages and rashers. and blah, blah. And I'd bring them, and he says, "Oh, come on, the boy wonder himself. Come on, and I'll show you." He'd bring me to an art gallery, and he'd show me about art and stuff, and you're going, "The fuck." And this is all just before the Bowie thing kicked in, but it planted huge seeds, you know.
I have to ask this. You said that your collaborator gave you When the World Was Young, and it's almost like he was singing the lyric, the main title. Did he give you the title, or did you?
No. I came up with the main title.
Okay, so
he just gave me this
melody.
No, not the vocal melody. It was like
Okay. That's not what I was hearing. That's
no,
good.
it was that sort of hook. And I came up with the melodies, and that's why I said it took ages to get the music right.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of based on chanson and those big sort of Aznavour ballads.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It keeps going.
Whenever I saw you in Vicar Street, it reminded me of, now it's my turn to sound pretentious, Antonin Artaud and you know, the Theatre of Cruelty, Peter Brook's, you know, the empty space in that it was cabaret, but there's everything in there. I mean, if you listen to the opening track of your Ecce Homo album,
Love Sub-Zero.
yeah, it sounds like it's Stravinsky nearly.
Hanging out in a disco.
yeah. And then you have, in your live show, I think I sent you a message soon after it, which was, it was like punk rock, it was disco, it was, I couldn't help but hear Tom Waits's Black Rider in there. Maybe it's because of the woodwind. What's going through your mind, or what's your journey towards realizing a performance?
Well, first of all, it's to bring the songs to life, to actually visually bring them songs to life and bring the audience into a world. I'm not interested in just selling the songs. It's actually to create their imagination, to live there. But theatrically, I understand how to go the fourth wall, the first wall, the third, break down the walls. So just like, say, the first 4 songs are quite sort of rhythmic and intense, and then I go bang, and I go hi,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting on a chair and go, so it's how are you? And you go, what the fuck? From that sort of gothic, like theatrical Berkoff surreal guy to just, how are you? A Dubliner, telling stories about
Almost like a stand-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like breaking it down, and then you go, oh my. But then you're building into another level, like getting political. And then I went into the dolls thing, because I just think poor trans community are getting in the neck for no reason. And then like it's sort of built up to like totally break it down and show them a hint of the essence of what the Virgin Prunes are about, you know, with that Caucasian walk and, you know, dislocation. That's why I changed the jacket, is to actually physically destroy it. So I think visually, even musically, if I'm talking to a musician, I say, no, you're an electric drill going through the brain. Zzz. Like, I just, I'll get you. And he'll play the guitar, you know, so I think visually.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're transferring those visuals into music.
Yeah. And I do the same with live, and you have budget restraints, especially when you're not a big band. So I went, no videos, just some projections, simple stuff. And I love the diversity. Most of the musicians I play with are classical. Renaud, the horn player, is classical. Kate Ellis, Kevin, the keyboard player. The tiny little girl who's only 23, she just came in working with me this year. She's classically trained. And then Lara's punk rock phenomena. But it goes from 23, 33, 43, 60. It's like, and it's 3 men and 3 women. And I just go, I love it. It's diversity, it's youth, and the energy of youth in the band is incredible for me.
Do you seek classical players, or how does that occur?
I tend to like classical players, and I found that out when I worked with Hal Willner, who produced Each Man Kills the Thing He Loves, my first solo album, and he said, work with the guys that know everything. So he says, if you get a guy that's liberal enough and he can play classic, he can go to white noise up to Stravinsky. And I tend to like that option, so I can go anywhere. So, yeah, but as I said, Lara is, no one can play punk rock like a punk rocker, and she doesn't sight read. So, she goes, it needs that.
Yeah, bit of grit.
Yeah, and I still have grit in me. As a man in his 60s, there's a vibrant, I don't know what, I was going, can I still reach that anger and the rage? The thing I'm most proud of is, and it sounds, I don't like blowing smoke, but I wrote those lyrics when I was 19, and they're still quite contemporary, like sexual frustration, political problems won't end, I think I'm lost, yes, I'm lost in a world of satisfaction. Like, what the fuck? We're all lost in a world of satisfaction at the moment. Everybody just wants the good times. You can't have fun parties every night of the week, guys. Have them 3 times a year.
What's the decision for you not to have a drummer live? Is that an artistic one or is that a financial one?
It was, number one, predominantly, I made Ecce Homo deliberately electronic. And when I finished recording it with Dave, I decided it wasn't finished. I said, I want strings, I want Renault, I want voices, I want that widescreen cinematic thing. So he says, well, you go and finish it yourself. I'm done. So it was, there's no real live drums on that. So predominantly the show was, I wanted that electronic spine and bring the other instruments over it. So that was one of the aesthetic reasons, but also I would have liked to bring a drummer, but financially, I lost my bollocks on all those tours. You just do. It's so expensive.
So you lose money while you tour?
Mm-hmm. Everyone does, unless you're fucking packing it out. I made some money at the festival.
Right, the one that you just did.
Yeah, the
one while your nails are dirty.
Yeah, I lost that. I made there, but And
what's the difference in that and doing a show in Vicar Street, or just a smaller club?
Vicar Street's not a small club, but it's a smaller club. I loved it. Vicar Street said, look, you could sell it out. We can have everyone standing. I said, I want them sitting. I said, I want them to listen. I want them to actually enjoy themselves. I want them, I saw Patti Smith there and it was packed. And you're standing and everyone's sweating and you can't go for a piss and you can't have a drink. And I'm just going, come on. I'm not at the age where I want to fucking stand for 2 hours. And you take it all in and people feel like a community. But that's being older, okay? When you're 16, 18, 19, being in a mosh pit and jumping and whatever is fantastic. But I'm not that age. But I thought it was going to be difficult. And it was, because it was really warm outdoors. Because I like your lighting's hugely compromised. Your sound is hugely compromised. But we're such a good sound man, and we organised it smartly so we could do it properly. But you've no sound checks
Do you use your own sound guy or
our own sound people?
Okay, so he has to get to know the board, or does he move in his own board, or
he a bit of both.
Okay,
and he comes in the night before. But you're traveling. There was there's 9 of us. Mm-hmm. So you're paying 9 flights, 9 hotels, 9 dinners, 9 PTs, 9 wages.
Right.
And it's a lot.
It adds up.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of. That's why I like merch is so important for young bands, especially. It's where they make their money.
Right.
And I have no qualms saying, fuck Live Nation for actually putting taking 20% of the young band's merch, which is what they do.
Wow.
It's absolutely disgusting. They bring in the people to fill the pub and the drinks in whatever. So I'll probably never get a gig with Live Nation again.
You wrote 3 songs on the new album about your mother. She died of Alzheimer's, as you mentioned, and it's something I'm only getting to know it now because I'm in my 50s and I'm seeing people around me have it. Tell me about your journey, or your mother's journey. Well, if you want to.
No, it's quite a horrible disease. My dad died, as I said, in 2006, and even my mother obviously really loved him and was very upset by him. But we all lived away from home. I believe a lot of Alzheimer's comes. You'll notice when older couples, when one dies, Alzheimer's can creep in like that. And I think it's from, not being active or intellectually active and doing more things. And I don't mean intellectually active, just go to, a pottery class or learn another language or get involved with something. But loneliness as well. But whatever, about 2-3 years later, I remember bringing her to actually the first rendition of those Shakespeare gigs. I brought her over for the weekend with her sister. To Stratford-upon-Avon they were. And I noticed an otherness about her, like a distance. It's very subtle. You just know it. And I always, and I said this to other people who had Alzheimer's, there's almost like a glaze, little tiny film in the eye, in the iris. And you sort of know it's a little, as the old Irish word, it's a bit gone to the fairies. They'd say things like that. She's doddering a bit. And that's basically, dementia coming in the door. And once it gets in, and my brothers were all in denial, don't be dramatic. No, it's not. And then it was obvious. And it was 6 years where I actually took time off to spend time with her, as we all did. We spent a day, a week with her, back and forth and back and forth. And it's hard. I believe there's a film, The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where people just, these monsters come in and they just become the same people, but they're not there. It is like that. Their soul goes. So I'd say whoever wrote The Invasion of the Body Snatchers was probably influenced by somebody, mother or friend or person who had dementia. It's a terrible, slow disease. Everyone says, they're back to childhood, this. Oh, bollocks, it's fucking horrible. You lose them. You can't talk to them.
What about that whole cliche, where music brings them back to their childhood? Does that work?
To a degree.
Did you sing to her?
I did. And on the album, if you know it, the song mainly about Alzheimer's is Amaranthus, Replies Bleeding, which is a flower, which is a tear, and she had them in her back garden. But at the very end of that, I have ding, ding, Daisy, give me your answer to. And that was her favourite song as a kid, and she always sang it. And I'd sing it to her. And also what I loved about it was how the computer in 2001 sings Daisy, Daisy as he's Daisy, being put off. And also Daisy, Daisy was the first song ever played by a synthesizer. So it sort of made all this thing to me. So I used to sing at that. But one good story was, I remember you'd call in, she was in a nursing home for 3 years. We looked after her at home for 3 years, and then she just got so sick. And because it does sort of break down, other organs, and they need nursing and full control. But it was a really good place. It was Mount Hydla. They were wonderfully kind. And you'd go in and you'd sign in. And every Monday, men would have a shave and they'd cut their hair. And women would have their hair blow dried and makeup. And I went in and I signed in and she says, sorry, Gavin, but we didn't do this to your mother. She asked for it. And I says, really? Yes, she asked for this makeup. And I went in and she had black nails, black lipstick, white makeup, and goth eyes. And it was just like the Virgin Prunes. And I just go, oh, you're back to the days. And she says, yeah, I remember Susie Sue. So I was like, whoa. So they go back, you know?
Yeah.
But there's a song in that, a line in that song. Now all I am is every man she ever knew. So I was her father, I was her brother, I was her husband, I was the milkman, I was any man. You know, another one where she'd go, bring the dog out, come on, go upstairs, get your coat and we'll bring the dog out for a walk. And she'd half an hour up there and I'd go, Ma, are you coming? I have the dog and everything. No, there's a bald guy down there and he wants to bring me for a walk with the dog. I'm not going. And I go, that's me. Because she had some image in her head that I had long curly hair or whatever. So, yeah. I tend to use humor as a way of getting through it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, like your father and with the coat the second time you saw him.
Yes, but, well, that wasn't humor. That was him being right. But I just, with Alzheimer's, but I also like talking about it in that there's nothing wrong with it. It's no one decides to be Alzheimer's, you know, and that's why I mention it in gigs, because it has to be outed. And that's why I'd mention therapy or anything. What the fuck is wrong with therapy? I think it should be in schools. I think there should be a therapist in every school so a little boy or girl can go, I'm being bullied online. Okay, what's happening at home? Just so they can talk to somebody. Because they can't talk to their parents sometimes, or they don't want to tell the parents will get heavy with that. You know what I mean? And therapy is just, it's basically gym for the soul and the brain. It's like everyone has a chip on their shoulder. You just have to understand what it is to get rid of it. Do you know what I mean?
What chips are in your shoulder today?
Well, weirdly enough, I used to have a chip that was my dad on my shoulder, and I had it for so long that I remember talking to Oliver Callan on radio, and he says, and how do you feel now that chip is gone? He says, I sort of miss it. It's like, he says, well, it's like that shoulder's free for the last 20 years, but I had 40 years of it. It's weird what you can get conditioned to put up with. I think we all have insecurity. I think, you know, there's something in me that keeps me wanting to be better and better and learn more and learn more. I mean, the word retirement wouldn't even come near me. But like, I'm going, maybe I will learn French. Maybe I will do this. Maybe I will do that. I don't know what that is. It's just this drive to do something different all the time. Like this album, you know, will I tour it again? I'm thinking more, no, I'd like to do something different next year, but I'm going to tour. And the next album won't be like this, I don't think. So I just want an adventure. And I need to believe in it, not a conveyor belt. Oh, that worked. Like, I mean, I remember I made Each Man Kills the Thing He Loves, and it got rave reviews all over Europe and America. And I went out and made Adam and Eve, which is like a surreal pop album. And they all went, where's the missing link between Nick Cave and Tom Waits? Where's he gone? Oh, he's gone, it's this. You know, so I break rules. You know, some people say you shoot yourself in the foot, as the Virgin Prunes did too. I mean, Baby Turns Blue, as I said at that gig, was the first time we ever played it, because it was such a big hit. And we said, we're not paying that, it's too big a hit. And like, what band does that?
Bowie?
Yes.
I was just thinking about how he sacked himself and started up Tin Machine. And then he sacked himself again. And then, yeah. So, I need to ask, did you get a tattoo of the artwork?
Well, not the artwork, the ohm, yes.
Yes. Is this life imitating art or art imitating life?
Well, it's something like, ecce homo means behold the man. Here I am. So it means so many things. It's also pre-Christian writing. It's our own Gaelic way of writing on stone and wood.
I guess what I'm wondering is, did you decide this is going to be on your arm and then the album came?
No. I made the album.
You made the album?
Yeah.
And then you decided, I'll get a tattoo of that.
Well, what I did was I made the album, the ohm came when I was working on the artwork. And I always said, I won't have a crown of thorns on my head. I'm not suffering anymore, but I'll have the crown off, hence the blood.
Right.
So it's like I've taken the crown off. So that's the wounds. And Ecce Homo was also a very famous painting of Christ with crown of thorns. And it's the last thing.
Where is that? I may have seen that. Where is that painting? Do you know?
I think it's in Italy.
Yeah. I may have seen it. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
But there's many paintings called Ecce Homo, and there's a
Okay.
niche book, Frederick Nietzsche, called Ecce Homo.
Yeah.
But I remember being on Dutch TV, Italian TV. No, you are wrong. It's Ecce Homo. I says, no, that's Italian. No, you're wrong. Ecce. I says, no, I looked it up. Ecce. It's old Latin, what Pontius Pilate would have said. And then a philosopher, Italian, rang in and says, Gavin is right. So I was like, fuck you. But I was like going, oh, Jesus, I got it wrong. But when I was doing the artwork, I went, ooh. And I remember going, how do I make this sort of a symbol? What is a symbol? And I just sort of was reading about ohm. I said, maybe ohm. Well, I put ohm in there. And it just sort of automatically happened when you're working on the artwork. And then it became a great logo, backdrop. And weirdly enough, all these rings, I tend to get something made when I finish an album.
What did you get made this time?
A tattoo.
And at what point, so I've drawn a relationship between the tattoo and the album cover. What's the relationship between the album cover and the music? Which comes first and which informs what?
Music comes first. I tend to, as I said, work really quickly, and Dave Bowie is very minimal when he writes. It's bum, ba-da, ba-da, ba-bum. And he came up with this angry synth line, which was dun, 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 the Ecce Homo synth line. And I went, you could improvise. And a great thing to improvise on is the Bible or Shakespeare, because there's so many great lines. And it just comes out of the air. I went, fight fire with fire, which is Shakespeare. We can walk on water, which is Jesus. We will die, we will live, which is fundamentalism. Ecce homo. And then Dave says, where did that come from? I says, I don't know. And then I went, Trump. It was the thing I was most angry about, and the rise and rise of the far right, and fundamentalism, and using religion as a power, the way they use the born-again Christian thing, which is really wrong. So it became sort of a really anti-fundamentalist song. So that came first. When I got it all finished, I was going, I want Ecce Homo to be the title track because it's now, it's today, this is happening, it's the most relevant problem in the world. We're moving backwards, not forwards. We're becoming more racist. We've no time for immigrants, even though it's so complex. But really, this religious thing, the far right, like, you know, women not having the rights be taken away from them in America to have an abortion if they want, or, you know, LGBT community being cut off. It just seems bonkers. So, yeah, and then when I decided it was that, I was going, well, that's that picture of Jesus being torn and after being torn and whipped at scourged at the pillar. He said to the crowd, Ecce Homo, and they said, kill him, crucify him. But behold the man, here I am. There's sort of a fun side of me of throwing the word homo at people.
Yeah.
Because it is totally grand in Europe, but people sort of twitch a little in Ireland and England and America. They go, Ecce Homo? Homo, it means man. It's not Ecce homosexual, it's Ecce Homo. Like the French, you know, Ecce Homo. But people are a little like, do you know what I mean?
It's got that history to it.
Yeah, history that's only late.
Yeah.
I mean, homosexual or homo was never in the Bible. Yeah, we are Homo sapiens, you know. But it's plain. But it doesn't give a fuck what sexuality you are. Is the truth. You shouldn't even have to identify as LGBT. You should just, like, when you're sitting, if you were sitting on the Late Late Show, they go, hi, yeah, are you homosexual? No, hi, are you heterosexual? Who the fuck would ask anyone if they were heterosexual? Why should they ask if someone is homosexual? I think get rid of that. And it's, you know, it's private. Live and let live.
We're 1 minute.
And I'm not talking about hiding it. Be yourself and say what you want. But I just think, why are you making a big thing of it? It's always been there, and it won't go away. It's 10% of the world.
Gavin, it's funny how we're meeting here because throughout my 231 episodes, your name has popped up so many times.
Yeah, we've been in touch for a few months.
Years.
Yeah.
It's hard to get to. But I mean, so many things I didn't touch on, like Aoife Hearn saying that you're the best artist she's ever worked with, and that includes Prince and who else did she work with?
Really?
Yeah. She said you're the most visual guy, you know, just down to the last detail. Moses Rowan, your godchild.
I love them.
He told me about, whenever you'd take him out as a kid, you'd say to him, what do we do now? You know, and give him the agency to fill the day. And I took that and I've done it to my own children because whenever you're in the thick of it, sometimes you need an outside energy to say you could do things a little bit differently sometimes.
Yeah.
You know? And I wanted to ask you about what are you work on next, but because of the time, I want to stop. So I'd prefer to just meet you again and then see what you're working on.
Yeah.
And that's I'm not gonna tie you to a date because it could take decades.
No, but it could be when I'm working on something and come in the early process.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Moses meant so much to me. He was my godchild, almost like my surrogate son, because I knew him. I took him in when he was 4, when his parents were splitting for a while. So a very big bond was there. But I used to take him, and my other godchild is Eve Hewson, who's quite a renowned actress now, and Jordan, and another one, batty. I was seen as a good godfather. I said, for fuck's sake, I can only have 4 or 5. I can't have 20. But I used to take them out every Christmas. Like I said, okay, I'm going to buy a present. We're going for fish and chips, and we're going to the cinema. But first, we're going to an art gallery. No, I says, well, then we're not having fish and chips. Or do you want to have fish and chips and not go to the cinema? No, we go to the art gallery, and then we go to the library and we pick a book. Okay, so I was sort of getting it in, and I says, now you can do what you want. And we'd always ended in Dr. Quirky's, which was the fun emporium on O'Connell Street. Mm-hmm. And I give them a £5 each, and I says, you have 5 minutes to blow 5 quid. Now, go. And it was great. But like around 12, they went, okay, Gav. So from 4 to 12, I so enjoyed them.
Yeah. Gavin, it's been a thrill, it's been a joy, been an honour.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for listening. If you know someone who might value this conversation, please feel free to pass it on. The Ireland podcast is intended as a record of long-form conversations like this. And if you would like to support the continuation of the work, there is a link in the notes. Take care.